Okay. Planned Deception, Staging of New Age Messiah, Chapter 9. This might be about an hour, this one, because this computer's playing up, so I want to get this done before it really starts going weird. Chapter 9. Is the New Age a Nazi revival? Quote, the ability of neo-paganism to reaffirm itself militantly and contest with Christianity for men's minds and bodies tells us that the Nazi nightmare is the most recent but not the final act in a larger human tragedy that is still being played out. Mhm. It would be foolish to see the phenomenon as a specifically German problem. That's from The Occult and the Third Reich by Michelle and Engelbert. And she begins, as in any other movement, those working for the New Age do so for all types of motives. Some are altruistic, others are calculating. Some wish to give, some wish to take. No doubt, the majority of the movement are there because of their better rather than baser motives. They are sincere when they say they practice harmlessness. However, in this initiate adept structured network, there are just as certainly adepts as there are novices. There are certainly those who have read the fine print of their seminal writings, who do know that the movement is about anything less than peace, light, and love. Nevertheless, they still enthusiastically participate. Just as many Christians know little of the content of their Bibles, so too do many New Agers know little of their printed works. Many high on the mystical thrills of the movement know little of the sobering content of books they may even revere. The average New Ager accepts at face value statements that Alice Bailey and Sai Baba, etc., are saints, since they have been taught to disengage their analytical mind and shift to intuition. They seldom are in a position to make a critical analysis of written material. As they enthusiastically enter the touchy-feely substitute to an outside world all too frightening and forbidding, many New Agers partake and abandon logic for feelings. Thus, they have little time left to rationally examine, as Shirley MacLaine puts it, their unearthly writings. Worse still, they usually have knowingly invoked spirits. These lull the New Ager into a false sense of peace about what they see, hear, or read. Still others have read this material, but have put all their trust in the angel of light they engaged in their initiatory experiences. Consequently, they feel they must pursue the program, including the cleansing action, and that they must do so as a matter of religious conviction. Still others are involved, as are some of humanist and atheist persuasion, because they believe we do need a new world order. They believe it will not succeed unless the planetary residents share a common religious outlook. The average New Ager looks at his or her materials through rose-coloured glasses of an altered state of consciousness. Since trances are not conducive to reasoning, logic is seldom employed by the reader until someone or something intervenes to break the trance and enable the reader to realise the horror of what is contemplated on the printed page. And horror is set forth on those printed pages. It is a horror that even many unrepentant New Agers have admitted is real. Since the publication of my The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, even David Spangler and Peter Lemessurier have admitted the risks. Peter Lemessurier, New Ager, author of the Armageddon script, spoke of the Theosophical Lucis Trust Mafia in his Beyond All Belief. In a chapter entitled Six Impossible Things Before Breakfast, he called Adolf Hitler the Theosophist's most notorious proxy disciple. She quotes him. Yet there are dangers in all this. What the human psyche can achieve when it is not restricted to the absolutist beliefs laid down by conventional rationality. For it was precisely this technique that was also used by the Theosophist's most notorious proxy disciple, the dictator Adolf Hitler. End quote. Although Le Mesurier appeared to have insight, his conclusions were faulty. He felt we needed a new planetary messiah to prevent such a Nazi revival. David Spangler also admitted the risks. However, he had faulty ideas as to how to prevent them. Quote, failure to see it as a recurrence of an old idea makes us more vulnerable to modern versions of that idea. Also, the New Age movement in North America has much in common with its counterpart in Europe between the world wars. The ecological spirit and desire for transcendence expressed at that time in Germany became corrupted and channeled into the Nazi movement, which had many roots in occultism. End quote. Is Nazism the beast revived? Earlier publications of New Age groups, including Lucis Trust and the Theosophical Society, indicate there may be more than just mere ideological similarities between the modern New Age movement and Nazism. It could well be a continuation of the very same thing, and Nazism could very well represent an early failure of the plan. A 1934 theosophical publication, The Aryan Path, gives strong evidence for this. Quote, it's a long quote. The essence of youth is revolt, the revolt that comes of a vision of broadening life and the urge to self-expression. Each generation tramples on the ideals of its parents, but only to set up ideals of its own. Hence such movements as the Boy Scouts will find no place in this letter, for they belong within the framework of our civilization and contribute to its preservation and increased efficiency, whereas the typical youth movements of today aim at the building of a new order. The thunderings of Carlyle, Nietzsche and Tolstoy had little effect upon the brutal pyramid of industrial civilization, but a few middle-class German youths about 1900 thought that it would be possible to escape from it and build differently elsewhere. Thirsting for light and air, they wandered forth into the lovely countryside of Germany, seeking that natural beauty and that creative freedom which the towns denied them. All that was artificial and conventional they opposed with the freshness of youthful instinct, giving up nicotine, alcohol, fashionable restrictive clothing and extravagance in food, and finding in the old folk songs and dances full expression of their joy in life. Sounds all right. In an atmosphere of mammonized religion and hypocrisy, these young people were suspicious of Christianity and invigorated by the breath of nature and the rhythm of their dancing and wandering. They proclaimed a joyous paganism. The movement grew. It was becoming conscious of itself and assuming the proportions of a crusade when the war came. It crumbled and most of its members perished. With the revolution, aspirations of liberty reawakened and thousands joined the new, largely proletarian youth movements with a bitterer knowledge of the horror of our civilization. The romantic ideals of pre-war youth were no longer sufficient. Political power was now the goal. Central Europe was seething with political dissensions, and soon the youth movement was in like condition. Many of the 4,000 youth homes scattered across Central Europe were originally dormitories for tired workers, but are now model houses, embodying the finest applications of science, centres of physical, mental, and social culture. Here the self-discipline of youth attains its finest flower and is preparing a race of nobly developed men and women. Something new had to be created. Young workers set up a number of small self-supporting communities. Soon, most of these banded themselves together in the ambition to create a great working community of a brighter, freer, spiritually rejuvenated Germany, of which each society was to be a microcosm. To most young Germans, the ideal state is Germany. Germany in a position of triumphant leadership of the there are other youth movements of the West, but these are typical. The cleavage between the old generation and the new has never been so wide as at present, but youth generally has not attained to the constructive vision of the German youth movement of even 20 years ago. There's something weird going on with the quotes. Blimey, this is long. The most vital contribution of these Western movements to the new civilization is the sense of internationalism. The International League of Youth, started by the Danes and the Christian youth movement, whose controlling genius is Mark Sanguer, are imbued with a beautiful spirit of human sympathy and world fellowship. But the righteous fervour of youth soon evaporates amid the material baits of our present civilization, and achieves little unless poured with conscious purpose and intensity into some constructive channel. As in Germany. Everywhere, however, there is a dawning consciousness that the future of mankind lies in his own will. The stirring of this recognition is already having powerful effects in India, China, and Russia. The youth movements of Western Europe are dimly groping toward it. With their slower apprehension, they may ultimately realize the significance of their power more completely. Then, what dazzling vistas of opportunity arise, what undreamt of greatness becomes possible for man. And that was the Aryan Path 1934 article, Youth Movements of the West. She continues, that article was written several years before World War II. There is little doubt in my mind that the average theosophist was horrified by the German carnage in that utopian experiment gone awry. But judging from some New Age writings, there were those who knew. In 1972, Foster Bailey, Alice Bailey's lawyer husband, wrote, quote, another approved hierarchical project is the uniting of the nations of Europe into one cooperating peaceful community. The plan is not for a new all-Europe government, nor for a common language. One attempt was to begin by uniting the peoples living in the Rhine River Valley, using that river as a binding factor. It was an attempt by a disciple, but did not work. I think it means a theosophical disciple. Now another attempt is in full swing, namely the six-nation European Common Market, which became the European Union, eventually. End quote. As one gentleman from Philadelphia told me, one doesn't need 100 monkeys to figure out who that disciple was, nor what this New Age movement is all about. I don't know if she's referring to like Hitler, Satan, or what. The solution, not the force. The problem of Le Mesurier, Spangler, and the enthusiastic theosophist of the 1930s in the Aryan Path lie in believing they could control this wonderful force they contacted. Still, other New Agers know they can't manipulate that force, but believe they can trust it to properly guide them. Yeah, she's talking about Satan, the devil. What they fail to recognise is that they will not manipulate it. It is manipulating them. Further, it is not benevolent. Just as Nazism went awry and became a potential embarrassment, so did Jonestown go awry and become an embarrassment. And so will Maitreya's regime go awry and become a fatal embarrassment. Although many blamed both on religious fundamentalism, many in New Age leadership knew instead they were occult utopian experiences turned sour. The real mistake Spangler and the others are making is thinking they can study their mistakes to avoid repeating them. The real mistake is involvement with Luciferic forces in the first place. One so doing will never be in control. He will be controlled. So, chapter 10, the Protocols of Zion. Probably get banned for this, talking about this. Quote, the massed forces of the old age will go on to destroy each other in a massive mutual venting of long pent-up aggression. Peter Lemessurier, the Armageddon script. Got it down here, actually. Go through that in a bit. She starts, if one piece of propaganda stands out as an inciter of anti-Judaic sentiments, it is the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. From Russian pogroms to the shattering glass of Kristallnacht, from cross-lit Ku Klux Klan rallies to modern bigots come Christians, their disturbing influence continues to this day. Those dead in Auschwitz ovens bear silent testimony to their efficacy as a propaganda tool. I think she's referring to like waspy Christians, white Anglo-Saxon. You know. To truly understand the origin and purpose of the protocols, one must bear in mind the strategy of those orchestrating the New Age. One half of the plan is to infiltrate all segments of the opposition, weakening them from within. The other half concerns the disposition of remaining stubborn religious orthodoxies who are unmoved by the stylish infiltration. Peter Lemessurier said it well when he observed the old agers would defeat each other. Sufficiently, the remaining orthodox will be pitted off against the remaining orthodox of other target groups. Such a strategy is diabolical genius of the highest order. People busy fighting each other will not be resisting a common enemy such as that posed by the New Order. Hitler planned to destroy European and world Jewry. He also wanted to abolish Christianity. See appendix reprint of 1930s newspaper article describing such Hitlerian plans. I'll have to find that. It's quite a big appendix. Hitler could not have done the job alone, nor could he have accomplished it with only the help of his Gestapos and his armies. Hitler needed and received citizen support. It was a system of neighbour spying on neighbour that ultimately guaranteed the success of his military machine and final solutions. Neighbour spying on neighbour. This required enthusiastic citizen support. Those not captivated by the mind control and meditative techniques so popular before the war were motivated by a rabid hate campaign directed against the Jews. The Jews were made scapegoats for all the post-World War I ills of German society. Hitler satisfied many beyond a reasonable doubt that his allegations were true. He needed to prove that there were no good Jews. The proofs he offered were the Protocols of Zion. They received the widest possible circulation under his regime. There are those among us who are distributing the protocols with equal vigour today. David Icke. Bill Cooper. As the Farm Belt crisis plagues the Midwestern United States, it's exploited by many, pushing a unique mixture of religious fanaticism, fear and occultism, known as identity. Sorry. Now she's put a note there to Revelation 13:3-4, King James, but I don't know what she's referring to. Farmers are repeatedly told that their problems are caused by Jewish bankers. Furthermore, they believe the Jews are not even the true Jews, that they, as the lost tribes of Israel, are the true Israel. In an ugly repeat of history, the protocols of Zion are offered as proof of malevolent Jewish aims. Among people facing desperate and straitened financial circumstances, the hysteria grows. Scapegoat theories become believable. The need for final solutions logically follows. Simultaneously, we see large population segments, particularly among the economically inflicted areas, beginning to believe stories denying the Hitlerian Holocaust. The cancer of this mentality has become such that traces of it have even filtered down to genuinely Christian publications, as the Herman Otten's Christian News. Now that the unthinkable is beginning to gain respectability among conservative Christian and political groups, it is prudent to examine their attitudinal roots. The Bible spoke of the beast whose deadly wound was healed. Okay, that was it. She's messed up the things wrong. Revelation. Those who read my first book, Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, know that I concluded the beast had to be a revival of Nazism, which in its turn was a revival of demonism. Rather than Adolf Hitler, this new system would be headed by the Antichrist and his false prophet. Today, the New Age movement gains political momentum. At the same time, we see a resurgence of a hate campaign against Jews. On the surface, the movements may not appear to be connected. However, if one investigates deeply, he will find that there indeed are links. He will find that many of the more simple-minded hate groups have been egged on by the more intellectual occultists, such as Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Juliana Glinka, and Arthur Koestler. It is propaganda they have fomented that in turn has helped fuel the identity movement. Identity and its close cousin, Christian technocracy, feature the very same conspiracy theories advanced by the German Nazis. Identity ranges from the obviously recognisable Reverend Richard Butler and the Aryan Nations organisation to the only slightly more subtle Pat Brooks and her New Puritan Library. Ironically, many of these people legitimately believe themselves to be fighting occultism. They are unaware that they themselves have incorporated many of its most important points in their own belief systems. This was likewise the case with many Germans. Nazi General Stroop led the raid on the Warsaw Ghetto, inflicting incredible death and destruction on recalcitrant Jews. At the conclusion of the war, he shared a Polish prison cell with a national freedom fighter. The cellmate was a lawyer by profession. Astonished that he was sharing space with the leader of the opposition, he decided to make the most of the opportunity. He observantly listened to all Stroop shared with him. There, Stroop proudly recounted Himmler's expedition to the Tibetan Dalai Lama. He gave a version of Jesus' travels very similar to that contained in the Aquarian Gospel. Nevertheless, he straight-facedly blamed a combination of Jews, Freemasonry, international bankers and Jesuits for Germany's defeat, as well as his own forthcoming execution. Stroop was not particularly well educated. It is possible that he was genuinely ignorant of the similarities between his own belief system and the Freemasons whom he condemned. Freemasonry functioned then, as it does now, as a sort of occult whipping boy. What many proponents of the protocols do not understand is that they are a major tool of occultists used to achieve occult domination of society. They were used for that purpose in World War II, and they are being used in the same manner today. What those hearing them do not know is that they did not originate from a Jewish congress. They were instead initiated by pledged Luciferians, Theosophists, probably acting out of their inclinations as Theosophists. Those spreading them from country to country likewise shared an illuminated or occult worldview. From their inception to their translation by Victor Marsden to their unfortunate appearance in the Detroit area Dearborn Press after a Henry Ford importation of them into the USA, they are an occult product from start to finish. This chapter will present evidence to show their total unreliability, except to prove the seriousness of occult aims. So-called protocols of the learned elders of Zion. I have people many send copies to me in all earnestness. I think she meant I have many people sending copies to me in all earnestness, telling me that this was the part of the conspiracy I had overlooked. They are, but not in the way that their proponents think. Pat Brooks, who purports to expose the occult as do I, actually cites them as a legitimate source! ! This could be excused as ignorance, but for the fact that she makes common cause with the identity movement. Further, she is nearly as well read on New Age materials as I am. As such, she knows that their true anti-Semitic nature. What are these so-called protocols of the learned elders of Zion, and how did they come into circulation? The protocols purport to be Jewish plans for world domination and the destruction of the Goyim, Gentiles. More likely, they are carefully disguised occult plans for world domination and the destruction of all but blonde, blue-eyed pagans. No lesser an occult figure than Madame Blavatsky herself was present at the birth of the protocol circulation. Just who composed them remains a mystery. But at any rate, Juliana Glinka, a personal companion to Madame Blavatsky, claimed to have found them and passed them on to governmental authorities. Of their origins, historian James Webb says, quote, "There is no possibility of doubting the date of the forgery or that the protocols were composed somewhere in France. Their first publication was in St. Petersburg in Khrushchev's anti-Semitic paper Znamya during August to September 1903. It is probable that the forgery entered Russia with Juliana Glinka, 1884 to 1918, the daughter of a Russian diplomat who spent her time in Paris and St. Petersburg and was a theosophist devoted to Madame Blavatsky. Well, she didn't live very long. 34? I wonder how she met her end. It is possible to identify Juliana Glinka in one of the best-known books of the occult revival, and when it becomes clear what sort of a person she was, the historian of the occult at once grows pensive. James Webb, The Occult Establishment. Don't know. It's expensive, that book. Helena Blavatsky herself had strong anti-Semitic tendencies. On one occasion, Webb recounts that she wrote a letter to a New York paper complaining of their reporting of Russian persecution against the Jews. Here it is interesting that there are many reference works detailing a supposed theosophical / masonry / Jewish / Jesuit conspiracy to overthrow the world. Everyone I have examined to date, including Nesta Webster's and Lady Jane Queensborough's, contain traces themselves of either anti-Christian thought or blatant occultism. The best critique of Nesta Webster I am aware of, written by a political conservative, is Richard Gilman's Behind World Revolution, The Strange Career of Nesta H. Webster. I don't believe Mr. Gilman's work mentions it, but those possessing a copy of Secret Societies and Subversive Movements should look at its back cover. It is endorsed by H. G. Wells! Nesta Webster was a practicing occultist who believed in reincarnation and mystical experiences. As regards Lady Jane Queensborough, 1 John 2:22 defines Antichrist as one who denieth the Father and the Son. On page 81 of volume 1 of her Occult Theocracy, Lady Jane Queensborough denies the Father. Further, she says that the God of the Jews is not the God of the Christians, and that the Jehovah of the Jews is not even worthy to be compared to Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians and Brahma. That's a long night, right? Where was I? Webb documents that she was also responsible for at least one anti-Semitic tract. The protocols were later translated into English by one Victor Marsden, a man with heavy ties to the English occult or Illuminist movement. They were circulated in the United States of America by one of the wealthiest anti-Semites of all time, Henry Ford. Henry Ford was responsible for United States circulation of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. He too had his occult biases. He frequently said he believed in reincarnation. Moreover, he had a close friendship with and deep admiration for Thomas Alva Edison, an early and faithful theosophist. The Theosophical Society naturally applauded Mr. Ford's occult beliefs. Henry Ford states his faith. Quote, Mr. Henry Ford seems to lose no opportunity to state his belief in reincarnation, and this, one would think, has gone a long way toward acquainting the world with reincarnation and karma. That's from The Theosophist, Notes and Comments, December 1938. James Webb, Cambridge scholar and author of The Occult Establishment, notes, when Juliana Glinka passed to her protector the manuscript known as The Secret of the Jews, she was not only fulfilling her function as a good secret agent and loyal anti-Semite, she was probably also proceeding in accordance with her private inclinations as an occultist and a member of the Theosophical Society. Of the anti-Semitism of Theosophy itself, Webb comments, quote, Theosophy, its doctrine, its foundress, that's Helena Blavatsky, and its foundress and its adherents can all be shown to have been involved in racism, conspiracy theories, and at least one anti-Semitic tract. Well, just the way the press go around throwing allegations of racism, conspiracy theories, and being right-wing around these days, you wonder actually what's really going on. I don't know. This tract is of considerable importance as it is one of the earliest anticipations of The Secret of the Jews and the Protocols. In order to understand how the Theosophical Society could have reprinted it in 1888, we must return to Madame Blavatsky and her doctrine. The Juliana Glinka Webb discusses is the same Juliana Glinka mentioned in the edition of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion as the patriotic lady who discovered them and felt it her Christian duty to pass them along to responsible people in positions of authority. This same Juliana Glinka was a theosophist devoted to Madame Blavatsky. Sometimes direct evidence has come to my attention in amusing ways. James Webb's work, The Occult Establishment, was the source of information I gave over a Southwest Radio Church interview to the effect that the protocols had probably been a direct product of occult interests. Some irate anti-Semites, brackets, they would deny this as they deny the Jewish people are true Semites, exclamation mark, close brackets, decided to try and convince me of my error. They sent me an aged copy of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. There it was in the introduction, a lengthy and glowing statement of Juliana Glinka's contribution to the circulation of these protocols. Until then, I had to settle for secondary evidence and Webb's intellectual inferences that their source of emanation had to be Madame Glinka. Victor Marsden, the man who translated the protocols into English, was himself hardly bias-free. He was a member of an English group dedicated to white supremacy known as the Britons. The founder of this group was Henry Hamilton Beamish. According to Webb, Beamish was influenced by the extreme South African anti-Semitism he encountered during the Boer War. Beamish's own patriotism was frightfully thin. Adopting the very techniques of occultism that he attributed to the Jews, he fled his native Great Britain to, quote, surface at Hitler's side. Such was the character of the individuals circulating the Protocols of Zion. Maybe they could more accurately be named the Protocols of the Learned Masters of Shambhala. The scriptures say, quote, let God be true and every man a liar. Were Christians only to consider the plain words of the New Testament proscribing anti-Semitism, they would not fall into these occult traps designed to pit one target group against the other. The Apostle Paul, also an object of occult hatred, summed it up well when he told the early Christians to boast not against the branches, for I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes, but as touching the election they are, but as touching the election they are beloved for the Father's sakes, for the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. Romans chapter 11. What time are we on? Okay. Let's do this one. Chapter 11. Syncretism in the church. Quote, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away, apostasy, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Scripturally, we know we are to face a great apostasy will precede the coming of our Lord. To one observing of the trends in modern theology, not the Christ, but that apostasy is now here. There are those who appear to be involved with malice or scienta, though. However, there are also those who have gone along out of a sense of duty or obedience to a particular religious body, or have involved themselves through naivety. There are those who have remained silent because of fear or a false sense of what constitutes Christian unity. For many reasons, people otherwise well intentioned or failing to heed Jesus Christ's command to watch have been drawn into what is unwitting apostasy. Since many of these people are admired and followed, it is vital that when they follow Christ's command to feed the hungry and clothe the naked, that they be emulated in that respect only and not for their synchronistic mixing of paganism and Christianity, philosophy. This chapter will discuss a few examples of this. In some cases, I have singled out people I personally admire for their great charitable acts. The pervasiveness of today's soul-killing syncretism is such that even apparently well-motivated people have failed to discern its dangers. Jesus said we were to go into all the world, yet many have interpreted that to mean Jesus wanted us to go tell them that they were correct all the time. The list of those who have succumbed to this error is heartbreaking. It includes some of the most sympathetic figures in recent history. Number 1, Mother Teresa. She's in the news today, actually. Hardly a decent person alive has not viewed Mother Teresa's work with approval. She has truly obeyed Jesus' command to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit those in prison. And yet, through ignorance of biblical principles or influence from other sources, she too has become a victim to a perverted version of the Great Commission. Desmond Doig is a biographer of Mother Teresa who had the opportunity to spend a great deal of time with her personally. He recorded her answers to several questions he posed. Her answers, although clearly acceptable to Doig, are startling to one knowing the biblical commands to flee idolatry. And it quotes, on conversation. Oh, this is Mother Teresa on conversation. What we are all trying to do by our work, by serving the people, is to come closer to God. If in coming face to face with God we accept Him in our lives, then we are converting. We become a better Hindu, a better Muslim, a better Catholic, a better whatever we are. And then by being better, we come closer and closer to Him. If we accept Him fully in our lives, then that is conversion. What approach would I use? For me, naturally, it would be a Catholic one. For you, it may be Hindu. For someone else, Buddhist, according to one's conscience. What God is in your mind, you must accept. Hindu nuns, ? There are many Hindu ladies who want our way of life, the life of poverty, prayer, sacrifice and service. They want the life of a missionary, but they wish to retain their faith, their own belief in God. Now I don't know how this works. You see, they want to take vows, they want prayers, they want complete dedication. I'm trying to think of a way. On last rites. We live that they may die, so that they may go home according to what is written in the book, be it written according to Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist or Catholic or Protestant or any other belief. We give them whatever they ask according to their faith. Some ask for Ganges water, some for holy water, for a word or for a prayer. We try and give them whatever they want. Quote ends. She continues. Perhaps at least part of the aspartate influences here may be traced to the temple of understanding of understanding's influence. Desmond Doig and Temple of Understanding materials indicate that on October the 24th, 1975, Mother Teresa spoke at a Temple of Understanding conference. She has subsequently been a featured speaker at other New Age conferences. One wonders if she would have so participated had she known of the overtly Luciferic connections of those at the Temple of Understanding. Mother Teresa is a woman who appears to take God and his will very seriously. Did she follow the lead of others such as Archbishop Dom Helder Camara of Brazil and Quaker Elton Trueblood, who have participated in these same activities on a frequent basis? There's a note here. Elton Trueblood has participated in a number of synchronistic events and has been honoured by such organisations. The most recent one in my file was that of the National Day of Prayer Breakfast, May the 3rd, 1984, in Dallas, Texas. He was an honoree, as was Robert Muller and brother David Steindl Rast. Their statement of intent read, "At a time of need, humanity is discovering a common bond. In these pages, people of the world show a vision of a world where humanity can rejoice together and thank the one source of our being. Now the coming world community can rightly find its hope and renewal in gratitude as in the past, but now on a global scale, so we can celebrate together the oneness of humanity in gratitude to God." The person who told me of the event, an attendee, said that Jesus was never mentioned. When she called the committee offices to ask why, the first man she spoke to, after asking her name and telephone number, said it had obviously been an oversight. She was not satisfied with that answer. She called again and this time talked with a female executive. That person said sharply that the speakers had been warned not to mention the name of Jesus, as it had been a stumbling block for the past 2,000 years, and it was time that it be eliminated in the interests of world peace. Archbishop Dom Helder Camara of Brazil was a 1984 Temple of Understanding conference speaker. Camara is another favourite of both the New Agers and the Neo-Evangelicals. Other speakers at the 1984 conference included Gerald Jamplowski, MD, and Diane V. Crincione, followers of Sai Baba and A Course in Miracles. Jamplowski has also been featured on Robert Schuller's Hour of Power, as has Norman Cousins. The Dalai Lama, Robert Muller, and Dr. Karan Singh MP, president of the Indian National Hindu Organisation, the Virat Hindu Samaj. He must have felt very much at home. Right, where was I? God. Okay. Hopefully, it is doubtful that she would have been a willing participant had she known of their ties to the Lucis Trust and other neo-pagan activities. I think this was the conference I was just talking about. Of the Temple of Understanding of its founder, Judith Hollister, Roland Gammon, a former writer-editor of national magazines, including Life, Look and Pageant, and a New Age activist in relatively high society circles, says, quote, "Of the hundreds of conferences and conventions, assemblies and May meetings I have attended, none have been more memorable than the 5 World Spiritual Summit conferences sponsored by the Temple of Understanding. In fact, the 20-year-old Temple of Understanding is such a bold New Age concept, and its founder, Judith Hollister, is such an Aquarian enchantress that these interfaith gatherings of world religion leaders cannot fail to be peacemaking and faith-heartening to the hundreds who attend and the millions who read, see and hear about them in international media. All living religions today are trying to function as an integrated spiritual grid to assist modern man in rescuing himself from soul-killing worldliness. And she starts a new bit. Christian mysticism opens door to apostasy. As one begins to study the pattern of those succumbing to this synchronistic apostasy, it becomes increasingly noticeable that they have been influenced by many of the same mystic sources as have the New Agers. Names that pop up time and time again on their bibliographies include Thomas Merton, Meister Eckhart, Evelyn Underhill, Martin Buber, and worse. Here we will examine only a few random examples of the glut of apostasy-producing mysticism within the Christian community. Norman Grubb and Union Life. Norman Grubb is a man who dedicated his life to Christ. Thereafter, he laboured long and diligently in the mission field. Tragically, he has succumbed to occult deception. It appears he has done so by going outside the scriptures to seek inspiration from the realms of the great Christian mystics. He was also evidently influenced by such early New Age efforts as Frank Buchmann's moral rearment. He has borrowed theologically from even Meister Eckhart, also a favourite of David Spangler and Matthew Fox. In 1975, Norman Grubb and his lawyer friend Bill Volkman formed Union Life. This slick 8.5 by 11-inch magazine, which has a colour cover, is sent free to those who request it. It is obviously not published for free. Sadly, in the April 1981 issue of their magazine, Norman Grubb expressed satisfaction that, quote, people are popping up like mushrooms, here, there, and everywhere, who are now what we call knowers. Inwardly, by the revelation of the Spirit, knowing that they are human forms of Christ. Christ walking about and spontaneously operating in his human forms. Emphasis added. She continues. Had Grubb read The Aquarian Conspiracy, hopefully he had not, he would have known this new spirituality of his and his Union Life friends was not all that unique. It was as old as the serpent's original lie to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Reading Marilyn Ferguson's description of what was happening in the churches, brackets, she approves those changes and many of those adopting them in their turn approve of her philosophy, close brackets. We see that the new spirituality of Union Life indeed has lots of competition, I guess she means. Quote, now the heretics are gaining ground, doctrine is losing its authority, and knowing is superseding belief. Oh, that's from The Aquarian Conspiracy. Marilyn Ferguson again. Richard Foster, quote, we of the New Age can risk going against the tide. Let us with abandon relish the fantasy games of children. Let's see visions and dream dreams. Let's play, sing, laugh. The imagination can release a flood of ideas, and exercising our imagination can be lots of fun. Only those who are insecure about their own maturity will fear such a delightful form of celebration. Richard J. Foster, page 170. Celebration of discipline. 1 second. What a quote. That kind of language, this kind of quote, what he's only those who are insecure about their own maturity will fear such a delightful form of celebration. Only those who are insecure. This is like the psychology. Psychologists are very, very fond of doing this. It's like they kind of push something forward, and if you're uncomfortable with it or you're questioning, then you've got a problem. You've got some kind of problem. You're resistant. You're what? Something wrong with him. There's something wrong with him. He's. Oh, you're knotted. You've got a wall around you. You're not open to new ideas. Blah 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 blah. Blah. It's very subversive and very clever and very passive aggressive. It's I used to have this a lot at work. Used to work with psychologists, and they're very tricky. They're very slippery. Like, you'll do stuff like a classic one. I'm nearly finished with this. Classic one that they do is you'll be having a discussion with them, or talking like in a group. We used to have these group meetings, and you'll oppose what they're saying, or you'll put up arguments, and they'll continue. They'll be, oh well, but this, but that, and you'll say, well no, but this, but that, and then they'll say, well, and you'll say, no, that's not right, and then they'll spring this one on you. They'll say, you seem to be quite angry, or okay, you need to calm down, and it's very passive aggressive, because as a lot of people, when somebody tells you you need to calm down, it triggers you. It's like a red rag to a bull. You need to calm down, and you feel you are calm, and they say you need to calm down. It's like you'll see if you phone up like telephone banking or something, or you're trying to get out of your talk contract or something, and you're on the phone, you're saying, look, this is out, no. You need to calm down. You need to calm down. You're getting very angry with me. It's kind of like it's like a little trick. And it just reminds me of that. Only those who are insecure about their own maturity will fear such a delightful form of celebration. Like, I've got this idea, you've got to go along with it, or there's something wrong with you. That's what he's saying, basically. Sorry. Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought on the obedience of Christ. 2 Corinthians 10:5, King James. She continues, I have found Richard Foster's books for sale in interesting locations. They are available, of course, in nearly every Christian bookstore. Several Church of the Nazarene members expressed concern to me that classes were being taught in their churches using the Foster books as text. I have found the book at the Theosophical Society headquarters in Wheaton, Illinois. Chinook Learning Community Warm Winds Bookstore on South Whidbey Island near Seattle, and in most secular bookstores. Just who is Richard J. Foster, and exactly what is he teaching? Why are his books ones that occultists feel comfortable reading and selling? Do they belong in evangelical and fundamentalist churches? Question mark. Uses New Age sources. One interesting means of gauging an author's orientation is to see who he quotes and in what context he quotes him. Foster's selection is revealing and typical of those who have probably inadvertently bought the New Age package through the dangerous route of Christian mysticism. Questionable sources Foster employs include Thomas Merton. Oh, these are the Christian mystics. Thomas Merton, who was a Trappist monk who became Hindu/Buddhist in his sympathies and orientation, and was an original respondent to New Age leader Barbara Marx Hubbard's invitation to form the overtly New Age Committee for the Future. Elizabeth O'Connor, pastor of the Church of the Redeemer in Washington, D.C. She highly praises the New Age Yes Center in Washington, D.C. Her books, published by World Books of Waco, Texas, include the likes of favorable references to Jiddu Krishnamurti, a past candidate for the job of Maitreya, who never renounced the underlying occultism, even though he did renounce the position of the great world teacher. That's actually correct. He they had him. They were going to push him as well. They were pushing him as the world teacher, and he was like, "Oh, I don't want nothing to do with that. Nah, I don't want it." Agnes Sanford, another Christian mystic, whose books are as frequently found on the shelves of theosophical organisations and occult bookstores as in Christian ones. Her son John's occultism is even more pronounced. Evelyn Underhill, author of Practical Mysticism. Meister Eckhart, condemned heretic who was condemned with good reason. He taught pantheism, deity of man, and reincarnation, coupled with altered state experiences. Meister Eckhart's writings are the rage among New Agers, including David Spangler, who says Meister Eckhart is his favourite mystic, and Matthew Fox, the most pronounced Catholic New Age and witchcraft shamanism advocate I am currently aware of. And that Meister Eckhart has something to do with Aleister Crowley. Or Aleister Crowley used to name check him. Pretty sure. Martin Buber, Jewish mystic and New Age thinker. More New Age in content than Jewish. He also lectured at the Bollingen/Iranos series lectures in Ascona, Switzerland. Harvey Cox, Harvard theologian who has been an open advocate of syncretism and Eastern religions for the past several years. He doubles as an instructor at Trungpa Rampa's Naropa Institute. If you want to read about, they want to know about all that. I can't remember the name of the book. It'll come to me. Lola A. Davis. The next step after syncretism and Christian mysticism is outright involvement in the mainstream of the New Age movement. Marilyn Ferguson, the articulate author of The Aquarian Conspiracy, gives an excellent example of this in the appendix to her book. There she reports the result of a survey she conducted of 200 Aquarian conspirators, or New Agers. A full 31%, nearly one third of those who responded, said that Christian mysticism or meditation had been important to their spiritual growth. But as those surveyed reveal, and Lola A. Davis even more dramatically illustrates, they do not remain Christian mystics forever. The next step is a renunciation of Jesus Christ as the only way and an adoption of a very different form of spirituality. Lola Davis, the author of the Lucis Trust distributed Toward a World Religion for the New Age, is a perfect but sad example of this type of progression. A former fundamentalist missionary wife, she unwittingly paints a sad picture of seduction by the very same Hindu culture that she originally aimed to convert. Her biographical statement on the back of the book indicates that she studied comparative religions in India and, living among Hindus, Muslims, animists, and Christians, she experienced an expanded concept of God. At any rate, she returned to the United States when her missionary husband's illness precluded any further service. For the next 16 years, she served dutifully as a clergyman's wife, while also maintaining her home. children, and managing to obtain bachelor and master's degrees in education. In 1950, the statement continues, the couple agreed that their paths were diverging and the union was severed. Whether the apostasy caused the divorce or the divorce caused the apostasy, the net results were the same. Lola Davis helped fulfill the biblical prophecy that in the last days some will depart from the faith and give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Such heed on her part was intensified after her move to California in 1965. There, as a member of the Santa Ana College, she had opportunities for expansion of consciousness. Meeting two spiritual teachers in California, there she was, quote, introduced to many esoteric books and groups, attending mind-expanding seminars, and found a number of kindred souls. Sadly, her book omits little. Painting a picture of peace, light, and love, Lola Davis makes it very clear that the real goal of herself and millions of others is to prepare the way for their expected New Age avatar or Messiah. The book's contents are without a doubt astonishing. Nearly everything I discussed in The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, she discusses, but with one important difference. Lola Davis sees these developments as positive. She sees as beneficial the move toward a new world religion that incorporates a stated belief in the divinity of man, Maitreya, and a Christ who is not Jesus. Falling heed to the soul-killing dangers of modern syncretism or apostasy, Lola Davis has come full circle on the dangerous path that too many Christians have begun and came to believe the lie as truth. May God help her and all others so ensnared. That's the end of chapter 11. Enchanted, I think that book's called. I'll have a look for it. It's about Tibetan Buddhism and someone's experiences